This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, here we are, June the 8th, 2023, and I have a veteran child star on the show with me today, and she's 39. I'm just going to go with that. 39. I got to thank Beverly Washburn for making the connection here. Folks, I give you the absolutely awesome Cynthia Pepper. How do you do, Cynthia?
I'm fine, thank you. Now I've got to get rid of this. It says the meeting is being recorded. Can I get rid of it?
Actually, we're fine. It's being recorded with me, so we're all
Okay, but
good.
I can barely see you now. Okay.
That's okay. I can see
All
you.
right. Well,
I
thank you
can
for the
see you.
nice introduction. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Beverly connected us, and I was more than happy to do this. And you've got um, quite the history. What I asked this of all my guests because I like to get to know what connected them to the business, and I would
Mhm.
like to get your background. And I know your father was in the business.
Right.
Is that what connected you?
Yeah, my mother too. My dad was in vaudeville, and he
Uh-huh.
went overseas with Bob Hope's troupe, entertain the troops in World
Uh-huh.
War II. And then my mother was a dancer with the Ziegfeld Follies, and it was just a natural that I'd go into show business. Really, it's everything I've ever. It's the only thing I've ever done. That's how I made a living when I was working. And you said
Yeah.
30. What? How old did you say I was? 36. I think that's about three times, whatever it was. It's okay.
What
Yeah.
was it like growing up in the business? I know your father was Jack Pepper, of course, and
Right.
yep. And so what was it like growing up in the business and in that environment?
Well, it was crazy. It was kind of crazy. We'd have friends over, and he'd have his old vaudeville friends, and especially for holidays, and they'd all be drinking because my both my parents drank, and the parties would go on all night, and then be a couple of old men on the couch next morning downstairs, and they slept over and maybe stayed another 2 days. I don't know. It was crazy. It was crazy, but we moved around quite a bit. I was born in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
California, and we moved to New York, and that's where I started. I did a show on Broadway when I was four.
Uh-huh.
So I had an older sister who was about 4 years older than I was, and she went to regular school, and I did that for a while, and I got a little too fancy pants, and I was saying my sister has to go to school, and I get to go to the theater. My mother put me over her knee and gave me a hairbrush, spanking. And I never thought that way anymore. I never thought, I'm better than you because I'm in the business. And then we moved to Texas, Dallas, and I went to school there. And my dad had a night. He was from Texas, and he had a nightclub called the Log Cabin, which in the 30s, I've been told, in some of the 40s, that he would have all the, let's say, the wise men come in, the wise guys,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like Al Capone, and they say, "Hey, Pepper, sing Melancholy Baby," and he better well sing it, or there might be trouble. And he knew those guys, but not didn't hang out with them, but they loved show business. So anytime they had a chance to go see my daddy or anyone else, they do it. And we lived there for about 5 years, and then back to L.A. to Hollywood, and then I went to school. And that's it was growing up. It was a different life, but I didn't know anything else. That's all I knew.
There you
So
go.
and this is the 50s, 40s, and 50s. So it was a different time, of course. And
Absolutely.
yeah, a wonderful time actually for us.
I know you've done mostly TV. You've done a few
Right.
movies. Which do you prefer, TV or movies?
I just like when I was working, just to be working. I used to tell when I started out TV, and then with my three sons, you get my
Mhm.
three sons up in Canada. And
Actually, I've had Stanley Livingston on the
oh, he's a
show.
good friend of mine. We're
Yeah.
like pals. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're great pals. And I I did that. I was the first family next door, so I was the first female love interest with Mike, the older boy. I played Gene Pearson, and it actually is showing on American TV on this nostalgic network right now every day. And so I did that, and then I did some smaller parts, and then I tried out. I did that for about almost a year, and then I tried out for my own series called Margie on ABC, and it lasted a year. And I played a girl in the 20s, which I have an affinity for. I love the 1920s, the music and the clothes and everything. So I got to play a teenager, as I did in My Three Sons, and I was 20, 21. And then I did a movie with Jimmy Stewart and Sandra Dee called Take What She's Mine. I played Sandra Dee's roommate, and
Mm-hmm.
I was under contract to 20th Century Fox, so I did pretty much what they wanted me to do. I did a lot of TV shows there, and then when Cleopatra was being made, I think in 1962, way before you were born,
Mm-hmm.
um, they almost killed the studio. So they let all
Oh,
the
I heard that. Yeah.
yeah. So they killed the players, the contract players. I mean, they were no longer. But I worked a few. I worked on Julia with Diane Carroll, and did a pilot with Joanna Moore and Yvonne Craig, who in Rome we did Three Coins in the Fountain based on the movie. So I did about 3 or 4 movies, but television is what I lived in. That's what I. And of course, the movie with Elvis, Kissin' Cousins, that
I'm going
came.
to ask you about a few of those movies because you're uncredited for this one, but
Which
Room
one?
for One More with Cary Grant. I've always
Yes.
found Cary Grant hilarious.
Well, Carrie, I was 12 years old, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually was an extra. And I remember taking the bus to Warner Brothers. We lived in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
My mother took me to the bus. I mean, over the hill to the valley in Hollywood, North
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood actually. And I remember I saying I played an orphan because I was an orphanage, and I played one of the orphans. All you see is my back, and it's been on. In fact, it was on last week here, and I say, there it is, and it's gone, just my back. And I remember that being naive in a different time, this was, I guess, 1952. Um, I heard Mr. Grant say as he was going into his dressing room something about what the hell or damn it. And I went, oh, Cary Grant swore. I thought it was just terrible. I said, what a horrible thing to say. And of course, we didn't, interact with him. But it was on. It's uncredited. I was an extra actually.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
from then on, then I went to Hollywood High with some pretty famous people, Nelson, the Nelsons, and Stephanie Powers,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a friend of mine. Went to my baby shower, and Yvette Mimeo and Linda Evans from Dynasty, and Mike Farrell from MASH. They're 2 years younger, and Mike is, I think, a year or two older than I am, so I'm in the middle. And I always say, well, the ladies can't lie about their age in public because I know how old they are. The ones who are still acting, and that was a deal when um, they had a lot of show business families going to Hollywood High. You can't tear it down now. It's a treasure on Sunset near Highland in Hollywood, and that's where I went to school. And of course, I took dancing and singing and acting outside of school, and so it was always it's in my blood, the show business. I never had a regular job like my daddy. He never had a regular job, So that's all I knew to do.
Well, Take Her, She's Mine. I
Yes.
love Jimmy Stewart,
Yeah.
and of course Sandra Dee was, of course, one of the Gidgets as well, So
She was
I,
adorable.
hmm
She was adorable. But I remember that she smoked a lot, and I smoked in those days, but I didn't do it on set. I didn't do it out because I was playing younger, and I just didn't do that. She did, and I'm wondering. And here's this pretty little cute little face, and she was chain smoking, and I'm thinking, well, she was, I think, on the end of her marriage to Bobby Darin, and probably that's how she coped because she was very quiet, sweet, but very quiet. Didn't Same with Sally Field when I did Flying Nun. There
hmm
were no tummy, it was just do your business. But they were both nice, but there was no friendship. But when I work, I have a tendency to stay down where the crew is and get to know the crew and hang out and watch other people
hmm
shoot. I just like to do that, but some people don't.
Do you have any memories of Jimmy Stewart or Audrey Meadows from that film?
Well, I do with Jimmy Stewart, and it wasn't very favorable at the time. I Sandra played Jimmy's daughter, and we were in college.
Mm-hmm.
And Thelma Ritter, her daughter, was in it, and we became pretty close at the time. And they were in a rotunda because we were protesting. That was the theme of this particular scene. And I'm outside come in, and when you're outside the room, you can't hear what the cue is. The red light goes on, next to the door. So the light didn't go on, and I couldn't hear. And all of a sudden, I hear this booming voice, and I won't say what he said. Where is that girl? She's supposed to come in. I was mortified because he was talking about me in front of hundreds of people. And I thought, oh my God, the light didn't go on. So then they came over and said, "Geez, something, we got to fix the light," and so forth. And that's really all the interaction I had with him. But I know that he had a rough time. I think around that time he lost his son in the military. But I did do his TV series. I did a segment on his TV series, the Jimmy Stewart Show, and I worked with one of the nicest people, which was Vincent Price. He was
Oh,
one of the nicest men I've ever met, an actor. But I don't have any. There's no one that I worked with that I really didn't like.
I'm
You know.
trying to I'm trying to get Victoria Price, Vincent Price's daughter, on here at some
Oh,
point because
really?
I've done tribute interviews before where I get relatives of people that come on, like Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter's been on
Oh, yeah.
here. Audrey Hepburn's eldest son has been on
Oh,
here.
wow.
Yep, yep, and allows me to make them part of the show, and their loved ones can celebrate them. So,
Right.
but yep, and of course
That's
you were in, huh?
I said that's very interesting. Um, I like to hear the legacy. I like to hear what they have to say. I have a son, and I wrote a book called Pigtails, Presley, and Pepper that
Uh-huh.
I happen to have right here.
Oh yeah, show it. There you go.
And it's a memoir. I wrote it with a Canadian, a
Wow.
good friend of mine, lives near Toronto, called Victor Hansen. And it's a show business. It's a memoir. It's a show business book. And I think I've lived long enough to uh, to write it. I will be 83 in September. So I've lived long enough to have. But people have asked me, meeting people, um, but you have a story. Well, everyone has a story, but have you ever thought about writing? I said, not really. And then I thought about it, and my friend Victor, we thought about it together, and then we wrote it. It took us about 2.5 years, and we wrote it, and it's doing well. It's on Amazon, and when I do the conventions and festivals, especially the Elvis ones, I bring it, and usually they usually sell out when I do. But it has all about my daddy and the family and show business. The actors I met, and Lucille Ball and different. Met Fred Astaire one time. Of course, Ginger. You have to tell you about Ginger, right?
Mm-hmm.
About Ginger Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my daddy was married to her, and that was his first wife. He was married 3 times, and my mother was married only once. But she was a Charleston champion dancer in Texas. I think she was 17, and he had a radio show. I think I knew in Chicago, but anyway, he had a rising star, and I was told that I think he dated her aunt first, but then he saw Ginger, and he was a few years older than she was. And I have 2 letters written to my aunt in Milwaukee, my dad's sister, saying, it's likely in 1928, 27. We're going to Hollywood. Jack bought me a roadster, and we hope we make it in Hollywood. Well, she made it in Hollywood. My daddy had a drinking problem, and I think it was kind of his star fell and hers, rose, like this. And but I think they remained friends. He never said anything bad about her. But when I was doing my show Margie on ABC or Fox, I went to the wardrobe department, and she was doing a pilot, and I was doing my pilot for the show. And I said, "Oh my gosh, there's Ginger Rogers." So I said, "I've got to say something to her." So I went over to her, and sometimes when you're nervous and you want to meet someone, you say really stupid things. So I said, "Miss Rogers?" And she says, "Yes." I said, "My name is Cynthia Pepper. I believe you know my father." Well, of course she knew. I mean, she was married to him. And she said, "Oh," I remember this clearly. She says, "Oh, and how is the dear boy?" And gave me a big hug. And I said, "He's fine." And then we had lunch a number of times at the commissary. She was very lovely, very lovely.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to do that. And through my dad, he really got to meet some Milton Berle and all the old guys, and of course, Bob Hope, Bing Crosby. They were good friends with him. Yeah, it was very. It's an interesting life that's not usual. I don't think it's quite unusual.
Hmm. Well, of course, you were in Kissin' Cousins. I remember that
Yes,
song well. I love Elvis Presley's music. And do you have a favorite Elvis Presley song?
yes, I do actually. Besides when he sang to me "Tender Feelings," which is an
Hmm.
old Shenandoah. It's taken from old Shenandoah. Da 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 da. It's taken from
Okay.
that. Um, with different lyrics, of course, and a few minor changes. My favorite is "I'll Remember You" that he did at the Hawaii, special that was on satellite for the first time. "I'll Remember
Okay.
You." That's my favorite, and I don't know why, but that's my favorite. Of course, anything he sings, but our sang that's my favorite.
I like
So,
a lot of Elvis songs, but if I was to pick a
but
favorite, good question, but I think probably up there for me, maybe it's because I find this song amusing, is Bossa Nova Baby.
oh, Bossa Nova, baby, what's that from? Fun and Acapulco, isn't it?
I
Isn't that
think
what it's
so,
from?
yeah.
Yeah, Bossa. He's
I
doing
like
that.
that.
He's doing that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot. I like the first song I heard him when I was 15 in Hollywood was
Mhm.
Heartbreak Hotel. And I
Yep.
was swooning, just like, Elvis, not knowing just a few years ago later I'd be working with him and become friends with him. And I, always told my friends I'd pay to do that, but I didn't tell the producers. I'd pay to work with him, but I didn't know. And when he sang that song to me in the movie, um, I had to act like I didn't like him, and which was very difficult. And
I
sometimes I have a
bet.
really, yeah, sometimes I have a really silly look on my face, like what? But we were shooting in Big Bear, California,
Hmm.
which is supposed to be the Smoky Mountains, and we were outside, and if the plane goes over, it was misty a little bit with rain, and we would have many conversations, but this one he said to me, he said, "Cynthia," and I went, "Yes, Elvis." He said, "I don't know what I'm doing here, making all these films." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I think I should be back driving a truck." And I thought, what a strange thing. That was his mentality, you know. You can take the man out of the country, we can take the country out of the man. I think that's
Yep.
what that was. And he said this to me and many other people from what I've heard. Do you think the fans will remember me when I'm gone? And I said, of course, Elvis. Well, I don't know. This was, I didn't know he was going to be such an icon. At that time, he was very successful, but you never know.
Hmm.
Time tells all that. And
Yep.
we became very friendly, and he was very sweet to me. And had like a lot of it is in my book. It's not an Elvis book that I wrote. I think a lot too many people have written it, and
Hmm.
and the whole book is my point of view of how I saw things, which is the way it should be. Nothing, it's not a kiss and tell, but it's interesting from what I know it is, and but I just have nothing but good things to say about him, and we stayed friends afterwards by phone. We didn't have cell phones in those days, and he said to me, he said, "You come up to Vegas and see me," and I said, "Of course I will, Elvis." Well, I went about my business. We'd talk on the phone occasionally, never thinking, well, he's going to be here forever, and of course he's not. He didn't. And so my, I guess, creed through life is don't put off tomorrow because you never know. And they say you regret what you didn't do in life more than what you did do in life. And I do have any regrets. It's not taking him up on that. I thought, well, he'll be around. And to go at 42 years old, it's that's a baby almost.
Yep.
So but yeah, we began. It's funny because I'll be in the restaurant with my husband or something, and you can hear Elvis in the background of music on TV. You can hear his name almost every day, whether it's "Thank you very much," some will do that, or they'll just mention his name. It has nothing to do with him at the time. And I said, well, my husband says, "You're part of history." I said, "Yeah, anyone who knew him and worked with him, I guess I am." Yeah, it's amazing. It's and especially since I was a big fan. Like the Frank Sinatra, who I really liked too, had the Bobby Soxers. Well, I was one of his screaming, groupies, I guess. When I was 15, he was only 5 years older than me. So
And of
you
course,
can
Yvonne Craig was in that movie as well. So,
Yvonne
yep.
Craig. The
Yep.
strange thing is that when I did my show Margie, Yvonne Craig had just a couple of lines, and we connect as friends, at that time. And then we did Kissin Cousins, and we also went to Rome together with Joanna Moore. And there's a kind of a theme to my book that we both, Victor and I both realized, because I wanted to start at the beginning. I would write, he would write. So let's change this a little bit, and I would write, and that's how we did it, you know, to write the book through the email and phone. And then they came down. He and his lovely wife came down for a couple times, and we, actually saw each other. And I said, I want it to sound like me, of course, because I was writing it. And I said, I don't want anything that's salacious, but I want it to be interesting. And like I said, I think I've made that point. It's a legacy to my son. I have one son who lives in Massachusetts, and he has been married for nine years, and he adopted the children that she had. And so it's the only family really I have left. My sister passed, my dad, my mom. So and that's where I stand now. I'm in Vegas. I love Vegas, and we have two puppies who are our kids, our girls, so to speak. And I like doing interviews, like with someone who does their homework, like you do. It's
Yep.
very, and it's also to keep the legacy of Elvis alive. I know the ETAs, Elvis tribute artists do, which I admire a lot. And we've got, since the movie came out. Did you see the movie Elvis?
Yes, I
Did you
did.
happen to see it? What did you think about it?
I liked it, but at the same token, it felt a little disjointed. I felt that there could have been a little more on like the Priscilla Presley elements, for example. She's there, but yet she doesn't seem to be there. Like, there just seems to me they tried to put too much in to a much bigger story, and they just had too small a box to put it in, you know?
Very interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting.
But
Yeah, go ahead, honey.
I liked it, yes. You know?
Yeah, I saw it twice. I saw it in the theater, then I saw it at home. You can, get it on cable. And the only thing I think, what's the word, that I didn't care about is that it was very dark.
Hmm.
And I know that he had some joy in his life. And I don't think they stress that enough. I mean, you can't please everybody. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be about he and Colonel Parker. That's what it was,
Hmm.
almost a Colonel Parker story, basically. Um, I have since become friends with Priscilla, which we just in passing would just give a hug. How are you? And we've you know connected and talk every now and then on the phone. Nothing, nothing personal, nothing, asking questions and everything, but just being friendly. And I kind of agree with you there. I didn't. Um, it wasn't enough of that, and it was like an MTV, boom, 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 boom. People
Yep.
have seen it 20 times because they missed this part, and then they missed that, because by the time you blink, this is gone and this is here. Yeah.
Yep.
But and I'm very glad they did it though, because, and I thought he was wonderful. Austin Butler
Yep.
is because it helps younger people who like Elvis. What he's a caricature, he's not a person. To see that he really was a feeling, emotional person, and feelings and everything else, and the talent, of course, is there. And we've got, from what I understand, seems acquired a lot of young people as fans, or at least acknowledge who he is. So I'm glad. With you can't please everybody. I know some people say, well, and of course everything there was poetic license with things. Well, that didn't
Oh
really
yeah.
happen like that. But that's movie making.
I
It's
would have
some of the.
been I would have been 5 years old whenever he passed.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, my
Yep.
goodness.
Yep. 1977, I was 5. Yep. But nonetheless, back to back having Take Her, She's Mine, and
Mhm.
Kissin' Cousins. That's two solid roles right there. So
Yeah, yeah. And I did a movie made for television called Crisis in Midair. I did a U.S. Steel Hour just before I did Kissing Cousins, which was live television in those days in New York. You'd
hmm.
rehearse for 2 or 3 weeks in New York like a play, and then if you missed your cue, it's on live. It's not pick up or anything. That's it. And I worked with Tommy Sands. I played. You know who Tommy Sands is?
I don't know.
Okay, he was married to Nancy Sinatra at one point, but he was a heartthrob, teenage heartthrob in the early 60s, 50s. And I played, but Martin Sheen was in it. Martin
Okay.
Sheen,
Yeah. Yep.
George Siegel, and they had smaller. Well, Tommy Sand and I played Tommy Sand's girlfriend, but it was live. And I said, if I could do this, I could do anything because it was like doing a play on camera. And someone told me that it's on YouTube and you can get it, and just put YouTube my name and put the name of the episode. And I thought, well, there I was. I was 22. And I think now with anything I've done, I said, I would do it better now. I wish I could go back and do it better, you know. But you do. But it was a lot of fun. And the strange thing is that how Elvis is in my book, a thread of Elvis, because even when Yvonne Craig was married to a guy named Jimmy Boyd, who sang a
Hmm.
song called "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus"
Okay.
in the early days, and he lived in the same apartment building we did in Hollywood, and and so there's a connection. She was married to him briefly, Yvonne, she was one of my best friends, and then throughout my life, there were actors I worked with. The 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yep.
That's where okay, it's kind of like that. And then when Yvonne and I went to Rome, and Joanna Moore was in what was it? Follow That Dream. So she was an Elvis lady. So the three of us, but we didn't know. I knew Yvonne, of course, but I didn't know Joanna. And we were there for 6 weeks shooting the pilot for NBC, and that was a wonderful experience. But afterwards, Yvonne and I stayed over about a week and a half, and we went to Venice, and we went to London, and we went to Paris, and we did all these things, and I think it was Europe on $10 a day or something like that. She had a book, and I got to know her, really well that time. And I really miss her. She's been gone, I don't know, 6 years, 5, 6 years. Yeah, there's not too many of us left, Greg. Eh,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Well, we're getting older. What can I say? That's life.
Well, I'm
You
going to
know,
be 51 this year, so I'm
Did,
starting to feel it every every
are you
day.
50 at 51? Oh my
Hmm.
God. Well, yeah, it's all relative, isn't it? I
Yep.
80 when I hit 80 in September, that like, whoa, because I plan, I said, well, I'll do something in 7 years. I'm like, wait a minute, I'll be 90. What am I talking about? But I don't feel it.
Nope.
Knock on wood. I have the energy. I'm fortunate, to walk and talk and so forth. I forget things sometimes, I'll be in mid sentence sometimes and say, what was I talking about? But that happens with a lot of people. But I'm very fortunate. And I always say, well, it's because I kissed Elvis and I knew Elvis. It kept me kind of young. See, that's my excuse.
Well, according to Internet Movie Database, um, you get a big space between your last was Crisis of in
In
Midair in
midair.
1979, and then you got Miss Congeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous in 2005. What brought you into doing the Sandra Bullock movie?
Well, I lived in Vegas, and
Hmm.
Beverly and I, we had an agent at the time, and I
Hmm.
had retired because I didn't work. I was married first time for 9 years and second time for 26. And my second husband really didn't want me to work, so I didn't work. But I had a thing going, I was going on a road going on, and I didn't. So you lose a lot of momentum. But no one, broke my arm about it. I just didn't work, and I kind of not retired, but I was too young, but I kind of did anyway. So then I started doing shows, like I said, conventions, festivals, which I still do now. But we tried out. There was a movie, Miss Congeniality called Armed and Fabulous, I think, the
Hmm.
second one. Uh, and we thought this is going to be great. And it was only 2 lines. It was only
Hmm.
2 lines. And I said, well, we read for it and we got it. But what happened is that whoever, I don't know how it was, but they only need one person to read the 2 lines. And it was like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I was the one. So Beverly didn't say anything, but she was obviously got the same, thing I did, price, fee and all that stuff. But we filmed it in Venetian Hotel, and that's it's kind of a funny, embarrassing story. But we, she had her makeup person, and I had mine, and we had our dressing rooms, and then they said, okay, ladies, we're ready. And I went up to where they were shooting. And I hadn't worked in a long time, especially a movie. And I think she was the associate producer. She was the producer. And I think she was dating Jesse at the time because she was talking to him a lot. Anyway, so the director said, okay, Cynthia, now you're going to, we're ready. Can you let's just go over it once or twice. I completely blanked out. Oh, he said, Cynthia, this is, Sandra, this is Cynthia Pepper, and like niceties, you know. And so I stood there because it was rush, 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 and I completely went up. I couldn't remember. I could remember my first line. I had only two lines, and I couldn't remember it. I was so embarrassed. And she was real sweet. She said, "Well, sit down and we'll talk for a few minutes, and then, calm down." No woman likes to tell her calm down, but sit down. So I did, and all I had was Miss. We were Beverly and I were. Sandra was coming through the doors, and she had written a book. Gracie Hart, her character. So we were in a bookstore, and we ambush her, more so to speak. And I say, Miss Hart, in other words, will you sign my book? I don't say that, and she keeps walking, and we're chasing her, kind of walking fast. And I said, something. Are you still seeing Prince William? And she turns and says, no, I don't like castles or something. That's all I had. And I thought, dear God, please don't let me say, are you still seeing Prince Charles? And I mean, it was the first line. I had the first line, and it was fine. We were only there about 2 hours, and did it, and it was fine. And she was as sweet as she could be. She was so nice. But once again, it's business, so you don't hang out. You do your thing, and then you go home. And it was, and I did get credit. It's way in the bottom, but it's there. I can say
Mm-hmm.
I worked with her, and
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't. I haven't even tried to do anything like that because of trying to memorize lines. And I can get on a stage and talk about Elvis or my book without any cue card or anything. But to have to memorize, any length of material would be very difficult. And I'm
Yeah.
at my stage. I don't want to, I don't want to work that. It's too stressful. It's too stressful. So I love to do, like I said, I love to travel and do. I have a fan page that Victor, I guess it's on his Facebook. I don't do Facebook per se. Excuse me. And anything I have to say, I'll write it and then he posts it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So that was that's the only thing as far as acting. I just really don't have any desire to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in
You've
the
done
guild. I've
you've
been
done a
belonged.
lot of. Yeah. Oh, sorry. What'd you say?
No,
You
go
were in
ahead.
the
I'm
guild?
just going to say I've belonged to Screen Actors Guild since 58,
Mm-hmm.
1958. So that's I've done my thing, as far as that
Mm-hmm.
goes.
Well, you've done quite a lot of television, and I noticed you've done the Addams Family. I
Yes.
met Lisa Loring at Frightmare in the Falls, and she was supposed to do my show, and she gave me her phone number, but we never did get that interview. But I do have a signed photo of her, and I got a picture with her. So you
And
know,
she
um,
passed. She just passed, didn't
she
she?
just passed.
I
Yep,
was shocked. She's young. I mean, fairly young.
she was delight to meet.
Oh,
Yeah, and
yeah, that's sad.
mm-hmm. And of course, we're in Perry Mason,
Perry Mason, Wagon Train,
Wagon
Lassie,
Train.
Lassie,
Mm-hmm.
which I adored. Some other in the old like, Thriller, Hawaiian Eye,
Mm-hmm.
the 1950, the late 50s, early 60s would start. I remember when I went to Warner Brothers. My first husband worked for Warner Brothers, but he was behind the scenes. He wasn't an actor or anything. And I forgot it was a Hawaiian Eye. I don't know which one it was, but I got to wear Natalie Wood's dress in the wardrobe
Mm-hmm.
department. I guess we were the same size at the time. And I thought, well, that's Natalie Wood. Now she's one of my favorite actresses. It
I
was,
love
still,
Natalie Wood. Yep.
still is. I mean, yeah, I just especially Splendor in the Grass. That's my favorite movie she's ever done. But yeah, and I've never got to meet her. I met some other people because of my daddy too, but um, and I never got to meet her. Jack Lemmon was always my favorite,
Oh.
and I never got to meet Jack Lemmon either. He could do
Did
anything.
you ever get to meet Grace Kelly? That was my crush from that
No,
era.
oh no. But I'll tell you something funny. My dear friend, who's not here anymore, Diane, we used to go up to Hollywood Boulevard after school and we'd go to, the malt shop in those days. And we would have a soda or something. And I would write. Debbie Reynolds was here, who I knew became a friend with because of my dad. Debbie Reynolds was here, and she put Grace Kelly was here. Like how silly this crazy stuff is. We got a funny story. Do you have time to tell you this
Sure,
funny story about
sure.
um, when my friend and I were, I guess, 15 and 16? We decided we were going to climb up the hill to the Hollywood sign. We were going to try
Uh-huh.
to get as close as we can because it's against a lot, to get up there, I guess. But we did that as kids, and we went and saw this beautiful house, and no one didn't seem to be there, and it was open. There was no gate to the back, and there was a pool and chairs, to lounge around. So we thought we'd lounge around a little bit. Then we heard some voices. We said, "Oh my gosh, we got to get," and we got closer and closer. So someone was coming home. So we hightailed it down, and we turned, and someone said, "The two girls, they're two girls." Well, as we were running, we were laughing, and we got to the bottom. They never found us. But the next day was in the small thing in the newspaper said two girls were seen at uh, Rock Hudson's house, sitting around his backyard. You know who Rock Hudson is?
Yep.
And we thought that was Rock Hudson that was chasing us. And so we never did that again because it was, we used to do crazy stuff like that, but nothing bad. We never did anything bad in those days, not really. I think the worst thing I ever did as a high schooler was sneaking the drive-in in the trunk, and that's about it.
There you
So
go.
yeah.
Yeah, that was that Rock Hudson was interrupted from doing pillow talk.
Yeah, right. Doris Day. She's another one I wish I'd met. Yeah,
There
Pillow
you
Talk.
go.
But he
There
was
you
he
go.
was a star then, and we just didn't know whose house it was, but it was his. It said
Hmm.
Rock Hudson's house. I went, oh my gosh. And they didn't pursue us or anything. They knew we were kids. They didn't say we got to find them or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You mentioned the conventions.
Mhm.
I ask this every time, what's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Hmm. I've had a lot of people say funny things, and to myself and Beverly and other people. Like, what? Um, to sign, maybe I don't feel that difficult. I don't know, maybe it's the cast, but that's on the arm or something. That's not that strange.
Hmm.
That's not that strange. But I had one woman when I was in Canada doing one near Toronto. No, up in Collingwood. They used to have it every year, and I used to go almost every year. And I'm sitting out there with my new book, and I happened to be, I don't know if I was by myself at the time. I don't know if Victor was there, but I'm sitting there, and the lady walks by me, and I had my pictures there and my book, and I smiled at her, and I said, "Oh, this is Elvis and me," and she goes, "Yeah, in your dreams." And I went, "No, that's really Elvis and me." And I said, "And I got to kiss him too." She goes, "Yeah, you wish." And he walked on. And here's my picture with him kissing me and everything. But then she walked away talking to herself. So I think there was a little problem there. But we've had other people say, buy 20 pictures and have someone say, "Are you in any of these?" Of course I'm in them. That's why you're buying them. But yeah, these are do. I just did the cherry festival about a month ago in
Hmm.
Missouri, and it was a lot of fun with Beverly and Lauren Chapin and some other people. And I guess we're going back next year, and I'm hoping to go to Australia if everything's okay in October, November, maybe December. I've been there once before. They did a whole town was kissing cousins. They had posters in the windows, and I was it because I'm the only one left, really, almost, in the film. And I really enjoyed that. So, you know, I say, Lord willing, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll be okay to do all that. But I've had a few things happen in the last couple of weeks that precluded me from flying or traveling. Nothing permanent. So I've had to miss out on a couple of things, but that's what I like to do. Maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Um, uh, I've done Canada. I've done Canada up in the west side a lot, Calgary and Penticton and different places. And I love Canadians.
Hmm.
I love it when you bump into them and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know that old thing. You
Yep.
guys are so polite. That's
We
what we think.
try.
Yeah, I have a lot. I have a lot of good friends that are Canadian, but Yeah, it's opportunity. I've been to Australia, been to Ireland, which is in my heritage. This in the last 10, 12 years. Denmark, Canada for sure, England. Let's see. Yeah, haven't been to like Japan. I haven't been to Italy. I mean, as far as working, or France. Uh, but there's still time. You never know how long I can do this. But I'm right now, like I said, I had to forced not to do something last couple of weeks, but which I really broke my heart. But it wasn't permanent, thank
Hmm.
God. So I'm okay to take it easy now and then and go about my business. But I meet a lot of nice people. I'll tell my husband, "Oh, I met so and so." He says, and I talk about it. He says, "I don't even know who you're talking about, but they're good friends of mine." He goes, "Well, I don't know who you're talking about."
Between Kissin' Cousins and Take Her She's Mine, which one would you say was your more should I say prominent role or whatever?
Oh,
If that makes sense.
kissing cousins for sure.
Okay.
I got a co-star billing in that, and it was of course, I got that without even auditioning. When I did Margie audition, they said there were about 200 girls that were auditioning for it. And they wanted someone who was like the girl next door, not sexy, not gorgeous, just kind of plain. I was, thank you so much. But they said, "Oh, wait a minute, what are you talking about? You got Margie." Uh, we'll get back to Margie for a minute. It went two seasons and then it changed. And the funny thing about it, first time was on, I think it was the first time, it was on right after My Three Sons, which is, I had just left to do Margie for it. So, and then went on the second season on a different time slot before the Untouchables, which was a 1920s show. And of
Hmm.
course, Margie was a 20s show. But I enjoyed, I forgot what the question was. And I'm often in, tell
That's
me what you
okay.
asked me.
Well, I meant asked what your more prominent role, and you
Oh,
said
that,
between those
yeah,
two films, and you said Kissin' Cousins.
yeah,
You did get to work with a lot of
yeah.
notable people. Elvis Presley, James Stewart, Sandra Dee, Cary Grant, and
Sally Field,
Sally Field. Love Sally
Vincent
Field.
Price. Yeah.
Vincent Price, like you really had an incredible career and an incredible legacy. Um, uh, Share your website on here and hold your book up again, so people can
Oh,
get a look at that. Yeah,
well,
look at
it's, it's,
that.
it's, it says, okay, it says, it has, I don't know if I'm holding it up right. There you go.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I got an award at the Missouri Cherry Festival last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the Ellie Dickey Literary Award, and they give that out every year, maybe four or five. And I'm wondering why my book, And they said because there was a lot of, and of course there's pictures. There's a lot of information about Daddy and vaudeville and going overseas, and they're very heavy on history. The committee, and plus, it's an interesting read. And there we are dancing, Elvis and I.
There you go.
If you go to my name, and it'll have all the website, and it'll have I have a fan page. Like I said, I'm not on Facebook per se, where I'm on it all.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I go through Victor Hansen. I write whatever I want to write, and then he posts it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a 300 and some pages. And I worked with David Hedison and Eddie Burns, Cookie Burns, on a play, um, like Martin Sheen, just different people. But I'm really happy about it because my son, like he said, "Mom, I didn't know you did that. Did this and that." I said, "Well, read my book." And I
Yep.
said, "You read it?" And I said, "Well, that's interesting." And I didn't want to do it, like, I didn't want to be salacious, or you know, I could have written a lot of stuff, and but I made it interesting enough that I've heard really nice feedback from it.
That is awesome. That is awesome. You know what, Cynthia? It was wonderful having you come on here
Thank you.
today, and a special shout out to Beverly Washburn for
Yes,
connecting us.
we're like
Uh,
sisters. We call each other sisters.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, she was on here, and you were one of the people that she recommended for me to reach out to, and she gave me your contact info, and I'm so happy we're able to do this, and maybe able to do the Zoom. So
Yes.
like
Yay.
yeah.
Thank you. We got it.
We got it. We got it.
Well, you're a pleasure. Thank you for you've done your homework, and that's what we want when we're being interviewed. You're terrific.
Yeah. Before I let you go, would you
Yes.
mind doing a plug for my show?
Okay.
Just state your name
Oh, all
and
right.
say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Python's Paradise.
Yep.
Greg Gift
Greg Gilbert.
Gilbert. See,
Yeah.
my name is Cynthia Pepper, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Yes, folks. Check out Kissin'
Thank
Cousins
you.
featuring Cynthia Pepper with Elvis Presley himself, among other films and television that she has done. And of course, hold that book up one more time
Okay.
for us.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Amazon, and if you go on my webpage, Wikipedia, you can find, or just put my name up there, you'll find all the different information, my website and so forth. And it's called
Pigtails.
Pigtails, Presley, and Pepper. Pigtails because I wore on Margie when I was a kid,
Yep.
and Presley, of course, and Pepper.
There you go. There you go. Thank you so
Thanks so much.
much for
Thank
allowing
you,
me the
Greg.
honor, and God bless you. Thank you so
You too.
much.
Thank you, honey. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Bye bye.